sent to me the following day. On the 14th of March, some days later, I received this email saying, "Further to your emails, I apologise for the delay in responding. I've just completed a response and posted, which should reach you in the coming days." And you'll note that my annotation here was, note my earlier emphatic request, my repeated request, should I say, to be sent, for the information and material to be sent to me electronically. So that I was quite unambiguous and unequivocal in seeking to have the information sent to me electronically, and at no point did Marcella Joyce ever say to me, is there any reason why that shouldn't happen? Note again, this email was sent to me at 18:20, and quite regularly during this process I have noted civil servants working well past the 9 to 5 period, and that's interesting in terms of another reflection in the world that we live in. This person wrote to me at 18:20 on the 14th of March. At 19:35 on the 14th of March, I wrote back to say to Marcella, "I note in your email just now that you appear to have posted material via snail mail to me. I would appreciate if you would email me this material, as this is the medium in which I communicated with you, and I may not be at that physical address whenever it arrives. I have been somewhat taken aback to find you using the post in this instance. Again, please confirm this email by return." So I was quite surprised that, having been quite unequivocal about seeking to have the data sent to me electronically, where I would have an auditable and traceable and chain of evidence essentially followed through for the data, that it was then purportedly sent to me by snail mail. 2 days later, on the 16th of March, I had still had no response in relation to my query to Marcella, so I sent another email seeking a response. You will note this email was sent by me on the 16th of March at 9:52 in the morning, and later that afternoon at 15:59 I received another phone call from Marcella Joyce. Again, I will analyse the contents of that email separately, but to pressay its contents, let me say that I was now told that the information had been posted out to me, and it contained essentially my marking scheme and a separate document which I understand to have been a contemporaneous set of support notes, which I now am told contains a list of the questions I would have been asked and the responses which I would have given, which would therefore support the marks that were granted to me. When I asked the question why information was posted to me which I had specifically and repeatedly asked to be sent electronically, I was given a very fudgy answer, which is essentially, we had it in paper so we just sent it to you. I then requested, well, could they just now send me a parallel copy by email, because I had never received this snail mail letter which purportedly had been sent in the post to me. I was then told by Marcella, and I invite you to examine this further video when it comes on stream, which I will put the details in the description in YouTube below. I was then informed by Marcella that there was a further problem, in that she said in relation to the two documents, a copy of one of the documents called a marking scheme was included in the post, but unfortunately, she said, she had actually included the original of the secondary or the backup support document, and therefore she no longer had it, and she requested that I would return it to her when and if I received it. Again, I reminded her I had not received this document, and at this stage I was wondering if this had been lost in the post. And I presumed that her exercise would be to try and trace it on her end. I then requested that Marcella would send out whatever information she still had at her disposal, and even though on her end and on the CSO end there had been a delay in sending me information, apparently a decision to send me information in a format and medium I hadn't sought it in, or in fact contrary to the specific request of me sending it, of having it sent by electronic mail. And given the fact that now I've been told that one of the documents was that the original was put in the letter, Marcella felt she'd be too busy that afternoon to be able to provide it for me. Again, it was the 16th of March. The following day was going to be a bank holiday on Patrick's Day. So I followed this up with an email on the 18th of March because I hadn't received an email from her following my conversation on the 16th at 14:20 on the 18th of March. And basically I reviewed the contents of our conversation. I said, you confirmed as I understand that you had posted an original document of which you had not retained a copy. You had also posted other material which you do have a copy, either a copy of or the original. You also sent a covering letter. I requested that you email me a copy of the material you had posted as I requested from the outset. You said you might not get to do it on Tuesday last. I presume you can just now email it to me, including whatever covering letter there was without further delay. So just to say, I was at this stage becoming a bit frustrated and slightly suspicious. I had experienced obfuscation over a period of time. I was told how short-term this contract would be and delays that would happen in relation to an appeals process, etc. And at this stage I still had not been provided with any information about a review or appeals process by Marcella Joyce or anyone else in the CSO. After the weekend on the 21st of March, I got another email from Marcella saying I'm out of the office, was at the office on Friday, just double checking that the letter subsequently arrived. So this gives an allusion to a belief that this letter was in some way in the post to me and it was likely to have arrived. A number of days later, on the 25th of March, I still had not received either a copy in the post of the information which purportedly was snail mailed to me, nor was I sent the email of the information that was supposedly contained in this letter. So I decided to become more formal in my communications with Marcella and set out a number of points to her in this letter, in which I also, as you can see highlighted here, formally requested that she email me links to all information department complaints procedures that apply in her sector. Also in relation to the material I asked, again I asked for the material and I asked if she was refusing to send me the material to please state formally that she wasn't and to set out her reasons. So at all times I wanted to act in a business-like way where we could agree to disagree, but that we could seek both to collaboratively work to clarify what the issues between us were. As you can see, I sent this email at 8:40 in the morning to receive 1 minute later an automated response saying that she was out of the office from the 24th until the 31st of March and therefore to contact another person with my query, Linda Carroll. So shortly after that I wrote to Linda Carroll and essentially asked that the material I requested be forwarded to me or emailed to me sent to me without further delay, only to find out again by automated response that Linda Carroll also was out of the office. So my experience to date in terms of frustration was that I've been told information was sent out to me. It wasn't sent out in the medium I'd sought it. Every time I was looking for information, I was chasing people who were either not in the office and been told other people were backing up their work who themselves were not in the office. I'd asked the viewer to recognise that this all adds up to the percolation of frustration and annoyance that was building up inside in me. Again, going back to the very initial concept that I raised about the expectation or the value proposition as presented by the CSO of a high quality organisation which could be trusted and from which I could expect a professional response and fair treatment. In frustration, I was waiting for Marcella to return to work on her designated date of the 31st of March, and by 14:18 that afternoon I still had not received an update, so I emailed her pointing out there was at that time 2:16 in the afternoon and requested that she provide me with the information. And again, once again, I said, for your information, I have not received the letter you have referred to. I still had not received the letter by now on the 31st of March, given that I was emailed on the 14th of March saying this letter had been sent out to me. So I was now something like 17 days later when an email could have been sent to me in less than 60 seconds, as I had requested at all times. And now this letter was missing. Having sent this email to Marcella on the 31st of March at 14:18, Less than an hour later, I got a short response saying from Marcella, please see a copy of the letter and the marking sheet posted on the March the 14th. She said, I do not have the interview notes as explained in the telephone conversation. Please note the address to which the letter was sent. It may be incorrect in some way. So this is the first suggestion that I was being given, that perhaps an incorrect address was given, so the letter may have gone to someone else. Now, these people, just for clarity's sake, were provided with my name and address in my original application form, which I filled in online, and I downloaded a copy of it later. So the question is, how could they ever assume to have put in an incorrect address, escapes me. So finally, I now receive by email a copy of a letter which purportedly was posted out to me on March the 14th, containing one attachment instead of the two different documents which were purportedly put in this snail mail envelope. The first thing I want to note is that the address here is my correct address, as was supplied to them online. And this is a letter saying, this was their response. Now remember, I had asked for this response by email, and I had initially made my request for feedback and information about an appeal as far back, as you can see here, the 24th of February. So we're now in March the 31st, five and a half weeks later, and I've finally been given this information, which is purportedly sent out to me by snail mail. So just to look at the content of this letter, again, I apologize for delay in responding. I would ask the viewer perhaps to look up another video of mine about the concept of a professional apology, because throughout this whole process I realize it's extremely easy to apologize to someone for doing something and then to repeat the same behavior and expect no one to notice. Anyway, what it said here is, as part of the interview process, interviewers completed a marking sheet for each candidate interviewed. I have attached a copy of your marking sheet. You will see the headings under which you were questioned, together with the marks available under each of these headings. This will also include your scores based on the performance at interview that day. I have also included notes taken at the interview. Now, just for the record, during my first phone call with Marcella, which took place on the 7th of March, I understand from, and again I'll analyse that conversation separately, I understand that Marcella was quite limiting in what she was offering to give me. I don't even believe that she's offering to give me these notes. I believe she was simply offering to give me a marking sheet, which is what I got in the end. So she said here, in your field district 18 candidates were applied for 10 positions. Now, so I just note here, later on, Val McBride, who is manager of Marcella Joyce, the assistant principal officer in that department, subsequently said it was 9 positions. So again, there's a discrepancy there. Just to point out, the person I'm dealing with, I didn't know it at that time, but it's most important to say Marcella Joyce is, if I jump forward to the reference, this is from a letter subsequently received by me on the 15th of April, sent by Val McBride, who says he's Val McBride, Assistant Principal Officer in the Census Recruitment, and as such he is Marcella's immediate supervisor. And he went on there to say that he confirmed that Marcella Joyce was the higher executive officer in the Census Recruitment Unit. Marcella has initial responsibility for dealing with any central recruitment issues. So I didn't know it earlier, but later on this was confirmed to me. The relevance of the role in the CSO, or the status in the CSO held by Marcella Joyce, will become more apparent when I analyse the conversation I had with her, the 2 previous conversations I had with her. I'd like you to note here too that this is the first time, given that on the very first occasion that I had sought information, and in my first conversation on the 7th of March with Marcella Joyce, I had sought information in relation to appeals process or reviews of the process, and this is the first time that I've been provided any information in that regard. So that's at the end of March. there's no understanding that I have for why I shouldn't have been given that information up front. And in subsequent correspondence and conversations, the idea being presented to me was that this is what normally happens, that I would be given this information quite freely. It's quite freely available. So if I just move on to the document that was contained attached to the email,